What is Sanatan Dharam? Is it a religion or a universal consciousness, or one of the guiding stars in our universe? We will explore the evolution of Hinduism and understand how it has survived through the ages. Why is Hinduism called the eternal religion, the exact translation of Sanatan Dharam? Yet the meaning is not the same. Hinduism was labeled as a religion through the lens of Abrahamic faiths and formally branded as such under British rule. Coincidentally, it was translated from Sanatan Dharam, but in reality it is not the same. The word Sanatan originates from the four Kumars Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan and Sanat Kumar, who are the mind-born sons of Brahma, the creator of the universe. Sanak represents ancient wisdom. Sanandan embodies ever blissful knowledge. Sanatan signifies eternity, and Sanat Kumar symbolizes eternal youth. These four sages reside in Janloka, guiding the universal order through the cycles of destruction, sustenance, and creation. They maintain the order of Pralaya and creation, but do not govern Mahapralaya, the great cosmic dissolution. The Bhagavad Gita speaks about karma and the cycle of rebirth, core tenets of Sanatan Dharam. However, the term Sanatan Dharam itself is not explicitly mentioned in the Ramayana or the Gita. The Gita does use Sanatan in different contexts, such as Kula Dharam Sanatana, the ancient laws of a family, and Shasvata Dharamagupta Sanatana, the undying protector of eternal laws. This distinction is crucial as Sanatan means eternal, and Dharam means the natural order or the universal consciousness, but not in the sense of religion as defined by Abrahamic traditions. It is closer to an eternal universal consciousness rather than an institutionalized faith. Hinduism has survived for thousands of years, making it eternal in continuity. However, the phrase Sanatan Dharam as a fixed term is not used in the Mahabharata in the way it is today. Though Krishna is referred to as the undying protector of eternal laws in the Gita, the modern branding of Hinduism as Sanatan Dharam is a relatively recent trend. Thus, the belief that Hinduism and Sanatan Dharam are the same is a misconception. Over time, Sanatan Dharam has become a popular label, but in essence, Hinduism remains a way of life rather than a conventional religion. The modern narrative equating Hinduism with Sanatan Dharam is one of the biggest misconceptions. This idea has gained traction as a trend, effectively rebranding Hinduism, a vast evolving way of life, into a fixed religious category. While Sanatan Dharam refers to eternal principles and universal consciousness, Hinduism as practiced is a diverse tradition shaped by time, culture, and philosophy. Stay tuned as we uncover the deeper truths behind this ancient way of life. Before the emergence of the Sraman Tradition in ancient India, the dominant religious framework was the Vedic way of life, which later evolved into what is now known as Hinduism. Hinduism, as understood today, emerged from the fusion of Vedic traditions, Brahmin ideology, Sraman traditions, Jainism, Buddhism, Bhakti Movement, and diverse indigenous beliefs. During the late Vedic period, say 1100 BCE, Brahmanism developed in the Kuru Panchal realm, later integrating with non-Vedic traditions of the eastern Ganga's plain. This synthesis not only influenced what became Hinduism, but also contributed to the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. Vedic rituals including psalm offerings, fire sacrifices, and the Ashwamedh played a crucial role in early spiritual practices, alongside the worship of deities like Indra, Agni, fire, and Rudra. The Sraman tradition emerged as a parallel and, at times, a challenge to the Brahminical sect of the Vedic structure. Unlike the ritualistic and sacrificial practices upheld by Brahmanism, Shaman movements emphasized asceticism, self-discipline, and direct spiritual experience. Traditions like Buddhism and Jainism arose from this school of thought, rejecting Brahmin sect authority and advocating alternative paths to liberation. At the heart of the Vedic administrative framework was the Varn system, which divided society into 4 classes. Brahmins, who are priests and scholars, Kshatriyas, who are warriors and rulers, Vaishyas, who are merchants and farmers, and Shudras, who are laborers and service providers. While initially based on occupational roles, this system later became more rigid, shaping social hierarchies that persisted for centuries. It focused on rituals, particularly sacrifices performed by priests called Brahmins to appease the gods. The Veds, a collection of hymns and rituals, served as the primary scriptures. The Vedic religion emphasized a hierarchical social structure with Brahmins at the top. Around 800 BCE, a new philosophical and religious movement emerged, known as the Sraman Tradition. The Shramanans, meaning seekers, rejected the authority of the Veds and the Brahmins, seeking a more austere path to spiritual liberation. They emphasized ascetic practices, meditation, and introspection. Sraman traditions led to evolution of yoga, Jainism, Buddhism, some schools of Hinduism. Soon after the rise of the Sraman traditions, Jainism began to take shape with Parshvanath as one of its earliest known figures around 800 BCE. Emphasizing non-violence, asceticism, and spiritual liberation, Jainism emerged as a distinct path that challenged the ritualistic practices of Brahmanism while carrying forward the core ideals of the Sraman movement. The Vedic system is one of the major traditions which shaped modern Hinduism, though present-day Hinduism is significantly different from the historical Vedic way of life. Impact of the Sraman tradition is that concepts like karma, rebirth, and moksha, originally central to Sraman philosophy, were later integrated into Vedic Hinduism. It shaped Indian spirituality, encouraged meditation, monasticism, and ethical living, which became core to later traditions. The Sraman tradition was a powerful spiritual movement that reshaped Indian philosophy. By rejecting Vedic authority and focusing on self-discipline, non-violence, and direct experience, it laid the foundation for Jainism, Buddhism, and later developments in Hinduism. This path challenged the authority of the Veds and the dominance of Brahmin priests, promoting a way of life based on self-discipline, meditation, and renunciation. The Shramans rejected elaborate rituals and focused on direct spiritual experience, seeking liberation, moksha, through self-effort rather than sacrifices and priestly mediation. Revival of Jainism in 5th century BCE, led by Mahavir, carried forward the Sraman ideals of strict asceticism and complete non-violence. Buddhism, founded by Gautam Buddha, embraced a more balanced approach, emphasizing the middle path between extreme asceticism and indulgence. Another Shramanic sect, the Ajivikas, believed in a deterministic universe where fate governed all actions. Ajivika philosophy emphasized determinism, in Sanskrit niyati, rejecting free will and believing that all events are preordained by cosmic law, making human effort irrelevant to one's fate. Shaman, the lost tradition, not only influenced Jainism and Buddhism, but also reshaped Vedic Hindu thought. Many Shramanic ideas were later absorbed into Vedic Hindu philosophy, transforming its understanding of karma, rebirth, and spiritual liberation. The Sraman movement, a precursor to Jainism, Buddhism, yoga, and some schools of Hinduism, emerged as an offshoot of the Vedic religion around 800 to 600 BCE. Vedism was centered around fire rituals, hymns, and sacrificial offerings dedicated to deities such as Indra, Agni, and Varun. Over time, as these traditions evolved, Brahmanism emerged during the late Vedic period, taking shape in the Ganga basin around 1000 BCE. While both Vedism and Brahmanism uphold the Veds as sacred, Brahmanism expanded beyond the early Vedic framework, incorporating new doctrines, philosophies, and practices. It introduced elements such as temple worship, puja, ritual offerings, meditation, renunciation, vegetarianism, and the central role of the guru, many of which were non-Vedic in origin but became integral to Vedic Hindu traditions. This marked the beginning of vegetarianism and the temple worship tradition, practices that were absent in early Vedism but became integral to later religious developments. This broader, more inclusive approach laid the foundation for the diverse and evolving traditions that later shaped Vedic Hinduism. Buddhism, which originated in India, started to decline in the 4th to 6th centuries AD. As Buddhism declined, Brahmanism, with its diverse traditions and practices, began to gain prominence. The Gupta period, for instance, saw the Guptas perform Vedic sacrifices to legitimize their rule while also patronizing Buddhism. At the same time, Buddhism was spreading across the world, driven by Emperor Ashoka's efforts through his missionary initiatives, inscriptions, and diplomatic outreach. In Bharatvarsh or India, not only did multiple religions emerge, but so did atheistic philosophical schools such as Samkhya, Mimamsa, and Karvaka, which rejected the concept of a central deity. Among the earliest organized religions, Jainism and Buddhism were pioneers in developing structured doctrines, centralized authority, and institutionalized religious systems. This redefined the concept of dharam, giving it a broader philosophical and ethical meaning with code of conduct that gradually became integrated into the Hindu Vedic system. Around the same period, Judaism was evolving with an understanding of dharam that bore similarities to Buddhist principles, particularly in its emphasis on ethical conduct and righteous living. By this time, Buddhism had already spread to Greece, Egypt, and Israel, largely due to Emperor Ashoka's missionary efforts. His edicts and diplomatic outreach played a significant role in transmitting Buddhist teachings beyond the Indian subcontinent, influencing philosophical thought in the Hellenistic and Mediterranean regions. The concept of dharam gradually transformed as codes of conduct and centralized authority became defining features of emerging religious traditions. This shift marked the point where dharam evolved from a broader way of life into a structured religion with established doctrines and institutions. It was during this period that Judaism of Jewish people emerged with a formalized doctrine recorded in the Torah, laying the foundation for an organized religious system centered on divine laws, ethical principles, and communal identity. This marked the emergence of religion as a structured system, where sacred texts were written to establish doctrines and govern the conduct of the community and its followers. This is how the meaning of dharam evolved into the concept of religion, shifting from a way of life to an organized system with doctrines and institutions. The start of Bhakti devotion movement and what led to the rise of the Bhakti movement, the last lap for survival of Hinduism. The Bhakti movement began around the 7th century AD in South India. The Bhakti movement revived Vaishnavism and Shaivism by emphasizing personal devotion over rituals, making worship more accessible to the masses. It later spread across India, reaching its peak between the 15th to 17th centuries. The movement arose as a response to ritualistic Brahmanism, the rigid caste system, and later, the influence of Islam. It emphasized personal devotion bhakti to a deity over rituals, temple-centric worship, and social hierarchies, promoting love, equality, and direct connection with the divine. Poets like Kabir, Mirabai, Tulsidas, and Guru Nanak played a crucial role in spreading bhakti ideals. Rather than being an eternal universal order of cosmology, what is now called Sanatan Dharam is a modern interpretation of ancient spiritual idea, an evolving tradition shaped by history, cultural exchanges, and shifting narratives. Some schools of Vedic Hinduism, like Vedanta, Samkhya, and Yoga, were influenced by the Sraman philosophy. The Hindu ashram system, which institutionalized renunciation within the Brahminical social structure, may have been an attempt to incorporate the monastic tradition found in Jain and Buddhist orders. Buddhism and Judaism transformed the concept of dharam into a structured religion, introducing doctrines, central authority, and institutionalized practices. This shift laid the foundation for what we recognize today as organized religion, with Judaism later being classified under the Abrahamic religion, influencing Christianity and Islam. In the land of Bharatvarsh, the people were identified as Hindus, not by religion but by geography. Over time, the British colonial rulers formalized this identity, labeling followers of diverse traditions as Hindus, since India could not be defined by a single religion. Earlier, Arabs and Persians referred to the people of this land as Hindush, seeing them as a community rather than a religious group, which also led to efforts to convert them to Islam. This looming threat fueled the Bhakti Movement, uniting people across religious lines and reviving the fragmented Vedantic traditions. Jainism, though deeply rooted in India, never expanded globally or even significantly within the subcontinent due to its strict practices and non-missionary approach. In contrast, Buddhism became the first religion to spread across the world, reaching far beyond its place of origin. It was the most influential and widely followed faith of its time. Hinduism, on the other hand, remained confined to India, fearing that intermingling with other cultures and traditions, much like what happened with Buddhism, would dilute its core identity. Meanwhile, the Abrahamic religions emerging in the Mediterranean region quickly adopted key strategies from Buddhism, such as missionary outreach, sacred texts, centralized religious authority, and the ability to adapt to local traditions. Judaism, like Jainism, remained restricted in growth due to its rigid practices. However, Christianity and Islam later refined and perfected the method of religious expansion, shaping the global religious landscape. Thank you for watching. I will return with more in-depth research on religion and its hidden historical narratives. Stay tuned.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video. Another video is coming soon. Share this to your friends. Press subscribe button and like button.